Are you screaming because the second floor of your house feels blazing hot like a furnace, even though the air conditioner is running full blast? We are stuck in a loop. The harder we crank up the AC, the higher the electric bill shoots up. Worse than that, the heat released from millions of outdoor AC units makes the city even hotter the next day, creating an expensive, no-way-out cycle. The real field temperature has hit 111 degrees Fahrenheit, with suffocating humidity, even causing dozens of deaths right inside stuffy, poorly ventilated homes. So, are you going to keep running this exhausting race? Stop right now. Come with me back into the past to learn how the Persians mastered the desert 3,000 years ago, without air conditioning and without electricity. I live in hot, humid Pennsylvania, so I learned how they thought and pulled out 5 practical ways that helped me get through last summer with cooling costs close to zero. You might think I'm exaggerating, but no. With just a piece of paper, an old cloth, and a bucket of water you already have at home, you can help your window blow in air that feels more than 25 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. Especially in method number 5, I'll show you how they stored ice all summer long right in the scorching desert, then how to turn your basement into the coolest place to escape the heat during the day. Right after that, I'll help you set up an active heat blocking system to stop the heat from the outside and rescue your second floor from that suffocating heat. Watch the video now to get the complete solution for beating the heat this summer. The Persian context and overworked AC in modern times. Before talking about any Persian tips, I want to start with why this directly connects to your own house. The problem the ancient Persians had and the problem we have today are very similar in one way. Heat always finds a way into the house, and we have to find a way to push it back out. In the Persian desert, the sun could bake the dirt yard, the walls, and the roof for hours. By late afternoon, even when the sunlight was weaker, those surfaces were still giving off heat. Water could not be wasted. A patch of shade near the door could make the air coming in feel a lot more comfortable than air that had just swept across a hot stone yard. And if the wind passed over a surface that had been baked by the sun all day, it was not helping cool you down anymore. It was carrying heat into the room. The Persians did not have AC to fix everything at the end. So they had to deal with the heat ahead of time, reduce direct sunlight, make the walls heat up more slowly, keep water in cooler places, and create a path for hot air to leave the living space. That is the part I want to learn from. My house in Pennsylvania is not sitting in the middle of a desert, but the hot, humid summer is still enough to drive me crazy. The AC is running, the thermostat is still lit up, and yet on some days the upstairs still feels stuffy and hot. The problem is not always the unit itself. A lot of the time, the house is taking in heat too fast, and the AC is just trying to pull all that heat back out. I see this in many kinds of homes. A neighbor in a ranch house complains that even with the doors open for a long time, the hot air still hangs around inside. My aunt used to live in an apartment with a section of glass facing south. In the afternoon, the room felt like the sunlight had locked it in place. And in places like Houston, the air is already humid, so adding water to the room sometimes just makes it feel heavier. So do not rush to copy any tip. Pay close attention to the next part, because I will point out exactly when you should open the doors, when you should close them, and when water helps cool things down or turns into a mistake. 2 core principles of the Persian cooling system. Without a C, I will say it plainly. There are 2 principles behind almost the entire Persian cooling system. Hot air needs a way out, and water only cools when it is able to evaporate. The first principle is that hot air rises. You can see this most clearly in the late afternoon. Downstairs still feels bearable, but as soon as you step onto the stairs, the air already feels heavier and hotter. Opening the attic door after a sunny day is the same way. Heat comes rushing out because it has been trapped there for hours. I used to think all I had to do was open more windows and the house would feel better. But not exactly. Air coming in only helps when the old heat has somewhere to leave the house. If the hottest air is still upstairs, in the attic, or up near the ceiling, you may feel a little breeze across your face, but the room still does not truly feel lighter. The heat is still there. It is just being pushed back and forth inside the same space. The second principle is that evaporating water takes heat with it. The easiest way to understand this is a wet shirt in the wind. When the water on the shirt evaporates, you feel cooler because that process takes away some of the heat. A house works the same way. Air passing over water, through wet cloth, or across a damp surface can feel gentler. But I also want to be clear, water only helps when it can evaporate. In dry areas, this method has a better chance of working, but in hot, humid areas, the air already holds a lot of moisture. Hanging more wet cloth inside the room can make the air feel heavier, make it more likely to smell damp, and be bad for homes that mold easily, or for people with asthma or allergies. In homes like that, opening doors or adding water both need to be controlled. The Persians also used earth, thick walls, shade, and underground spaces to slow down the way heat entered. Those things do not blow out cold air like AC, but they reduce the amount of heat the house has to deal with. From these two principles, the Persians did not stop at just one method. They guided the wind along the right path, made the airflow gentler before it entered the house, blocked sunlight from the outside, slowed heat as it moved through the walls, and then kept the coolness around longer. Keep each of those methods in mind, because in a moment you will see how they apply to your own house. And the easiest place to start is simply giving the house a way to breathe. Application 1. Badgir. Create an intake and an outlet for hot air. Let us start with the first method, and also the one I find the easiest to try in a modern home. It may sound a little funny, and you may be like me and think, what is there to learn from the Persians about opening a window? But I used to get this wrong. I opened windows because I wanted a breeze, but I did not know whether that airflow was actually pushing hot air out or just making the room feel more closed in. The Persians handled this with the Badgir, the wind catcher tower. It did not just bring wind into the house, it also created a path for hot air to escape. I am not building a tower on my roof, but I am taking the exact same principle. There has to be one opening that pulls air in and one opening that lets hot air out. First, take a thin strip of paper or a small piece of tissue. Hold it near the edge of a window. If the paper gets pulled inward, that opening is drawing air in. If the paper gets pushed outward, that opening can be used as an outlet. I usually choose a shaded window, like one on the north or east side, as the intake. The warmer side, or the higher window if the house has an upper floor, becomes the outlet. For a two-story house, an upstairs window is very useful for venting hot air. For a one-story ranch house, you do it horizontally. One end pulls air in, and the other end lets air out. If you have double-hung windows, try opening the lower half on the shaded side and the upper half on the hot side. If you use box fans, have one fan pulling air in from the cooler side and the other blowing hot air out. The materials you need for the wet cloth version are just about 1 yard of burlap or natural cotton, a 5-gallon bucket, a spring tension curtain rod, water, and a little salt if you want. Here is how to set it up. Put the bucket of water under the shaded window, mount the curtain rod across the window frame, drape the cloth over the curtain rod so the bottom part dips into the bucket of water. The cloth will pull water upward on its own and stay damp. Then open a higher window on the warmer side, or crack open the path up to the attic if your house has one. As hot air escapes from above, fresh air will pass through the wet cloth before entering the room. Now go ahead and try it. Take a small piece of paper and check which window is pulling air in and which one is pushing air out. But if the incoming airflow has just swept across a hot driveway, a concrete patio, or a wall that has been baked by the sun all afternoon, then creating an air path alone is not enough. At that point, we have to treat the air source before bringing it into the house. Application 2. Qanat. Do not pull air from a spot that is being baked. The second application starts from a very practical way the Persians thought about things, moving water underground to keep it out of the sun. That system is called a qanat. Put simply, a qanat is an underground water channel that carries water from a higher source, a mountain source, or an aquifer to dry areas. The smart part is that the water does not run out in the open under the sun. It moves underground, so less of it evaporates, it heats up less, and it keeps a steadier coolness. The qanat shows that the Persians did not use only wind. They used earth and water too. When airflow moves near cool water, cool earth, or an underground space, it can become gentler before entering the living area. In other words, they were not only asking whether the wind could get into the house, they also cared about whether that airflow had been cooled down before it entered the house. I am not telling you to dig a Qanat in your backyard. The modern home version is not complicated either. Before using a window as your air intake, go outside at the hottest part of the day and stand right near that area. I once tried this at a west-facing door after hours of sun. The heat rising off the driveway was so obvious that opening the door felt no different from pulling baked air straight into the room. A better air source is usually near tree shade, grass, a porch, or the side that gets less direct afternoon sun. If your house has a basement, a lower-level door, or a cooler area close to the ground, you should pay attention to that too, because the earth around the house is usually more stable than concrete that has been sitting in the sun all day. For an apartment with windows facing only one direction, do not try to pull air in at all costs. First, look at what is outside that window: shade or hot glass, grass or concrete. But keep in mind, do not turn the Qanat into an excuse to add water indoors carelessly. In humid areas, water can make the room feel more closed in, so the priority should still be choosing a cooler air source and controlling moisture. And when the air source around the window is still being baked too hard by the sun, that is when you need the next step. Block the sunlight before it touches the house. Application 3: Courtyards and shade. Block the sun before it touches the house. I tried this third method right at the window that gets hit by the strongest sun in my house. Right outside the glass, right where the heat touches first. The Persians understood this very well. Courtyards, surrounding walls, porches, trees, and shade all helped reduce sunlight before it heated up the living area. They did not wait for the room to get hot and then deal with it. They created shade from the outside, so the walls, doors, and the area around the house would not get baked so hard in the first place. A modern home can do a simpler version with shade cloth. I would prioritize south-facing and west-facing windows first, because those are usually the places that get hit by the sun the longest during the day. You can clip it, tie it, use removable hooks, or stretch it with a rod if you do not want to drill into the window frame. The important thing is that the cover sits outside the glass, not just pulling curtains after the sun has already entered the room. I have seen homes with just one large section of glass facing the sun, especially apartments or small rooms. With that kind of setup, I would deal directly with the glass, cut Reflectix, foil bubble wrap, or a heat-reflective panel to fit the window frame. If the outside surface is too bright, add a layer of white fabric or a light-colored curtain. Blackout curtains inside are still worth using, but they are only a backup layer after the glass has already been shielded from some of the heat. After I finished, I only needed to check 3 things. The glass felt less hot to the touch, the thermometer in the room rose more slowly in the afternoon, and the AC stayed off longer than before. That meant this method was doing its job, reducing the heat entering the house. You have covered the hottest glass now. Next, follow me and take a closer look at something that holds heat much longer than glass does: the walls, the roof, and the thermal mass of the house. Application 4. Thick walls and thermal mass make the house heat up more slowly. Are the walls in your house as thick as those in old Persian houses? Probably not. So this fourth method is not about rebuilding your house. It is about using your house according to the hot and cool rhythm of the day. Persian houses used thick walls, heavy materials, and deeper spaces to slow down heat as it moved in. They did not create cold air. They simply made the sun take longer to overpower the house. Early morning is the most important time. Before the sun hits the glass and walls hard, close the doors, draw the curtains, and lower the shade cloth if you have it. Do not wait until the room is already hot before you deal with it. Then, in the middle of the day, keep south-facing and west-facing doors closed when it is hotter outside than inside. This is also not the time for long cooking, running the dryer, using the oven, or doing anything that pushes more heat into the living space. If the room feels hot from the ceiling down, pay attention to the roof and the attic. Sometimes the biggest heat source is right above your head. Finally, in north-facing rooms, east-facing rooms, lower floors or basements, treat them as cool zones that need to be protected. On nights when it is cooler outside than inside, open the doors to vent the heat. The next morning, close them again before the sun gets strong. But I also want to stress this: opening doors is not always the right move. Sometimes holding on to the coolness you already have is the best way to stay cool. But the Persians went even further than just slowing down how fast a house heats up. They once managed to keep ice in the middle of the desert. And that is the final application, and also the part that completely changed how I think about keeping a house cool. Application 5: Yakchal, the structure that made and stored ice in the middle of the desert. I know you have been curious since the start of the video. How did the Persians actually make ice in the middle of the desert? Now I will explain it. But let me say this first. I am not telling you to build this thing in your backyard. That structure is called a Yakchal. The way they made ice was based on something very simple. The desert can be brutally hot during the day, but at night it can get much colder. The Persians spread water into thin layers in shallow pools so the water could lose heat quickly. On nights that were cold enough, the water could freeze into thin sheets of ice. But making ice was only the first step. The harder question was this: how did they keep that ice from melting as soon as the sun came up? The Yakchal was built like a natural cold storage space. Above it was a large dome, below it was a deep underground chamber, and around it were thick walls and heat-blocking materials. To me, it looks like a giant cooler buried in the ground. The chamber sat deep below, where heat did not spike the way it did on a yard sitting under the sun. The dome and thick walls protected the ice from being baked directly. In places that had wind towers, hot air was pulled out instead of sitting around the ice storage area. That ice was used to keep food cold, preserve meat, chill water, and make cold dishes. But the point I bring back to my own house is this: wherever the house is already cooler, do not ruin it. I used to leave the basement door open all day, then wonder why it started feeling stuffy down there too. Later, I noticed that hot air from upstairs was slowly spilling down. Since then, during the hottest hours, I treat the basement or the shadiest room as a cool shelter, instead of trying to make the whole house comfortable all at once. But do not leave yet, because knowing each separate part still is not enough. Right after this, I will pull everything together into a practical plan for different types of homes and different kinds of climates, putting it together as a heat defense system for a modern home. Now, before you apply any method from this video, let me pull it together the same way I check my own house on a hot day. The first thing I do is not open the doors. I go look at the spots getting hit hardest by the sun. Which glass doors feel hot to the touch? Which wall gets long afternoon sun? Which room starts feeling stuffy first? That spot needs to be shaded first, with shade cloth, a heat-reflective panel, outdoor curtains, plants, or an awning. Blocking the sun early is always easier than pulling heat out after the room is already hot. After that, I think about airflow. I do not open doors just because the house feels stuffy. I look at where the air outside that door is coming from. Is it passing through shade, or has it just swept across hot concrete? Does it have a way to escape, or is it just moving around the room? When the breeze is actually cooler, I create an intake and an outlet. If there is no high opening, I use a cross airflow. If I have a box fan, I prioritize pushing hot air outside. The third thing I do is watch the timing. On nights when it is cooler outside and not too humid, I open up the house to vent the heat. The next morning, I close it back up early, before the sun returns and starts heating the glass and walls again. Finally, I choose based on the climate. On dry days, you can try adding water. On humid days, do not turn your own house into a steam room. At that point, blocking sun, removing humidity, and using AC matter more. During a heat warning, do not try to tough it out, especially if there are older adults, small children, sick people, or pets in the house. The Persians did not teach me to go back to the past. They taught me to look at the house as a system, where the sun comes in, where the air goes, where heat gets trapped, and whether the coolness you already have is being protected. After this video, the more I learn about old methods like Badgir, Qanat, and Yakchal, the more I admire the way people back then observed their homes, the direction of the sun, the airflow, and the water sources around them. They did not have many devices, but they knew how to use what they had very wisely. If you have also forgotten some old method from your family, your hometown, your garden, or something passed down from your grandparents, try taking another look and using it the right way. Not to go back to the past, but to honor those good experiences and spread them further. Do you know any other old method that helps keep a house cooler? Share it if you have ever used it in your own home. It might help someone get through this summer. And remember to subscribe to the channel because I will be back with more practical ways to protect your home.